Hi, this is Daryl Myatt from Keller, Texas. Today is Friday, January 28th, 2011. Man, there's a lot of things going on today. Have you seen the stuff going on in Egypt? They're having a lot of problems over there. This first story out of Telegraph.com says Egyptian protests intensify as clashes spread across the Middle East. Egyptian police have been fighting protesters in intensifying clashes, and demonstrations have reported from Yemen and Gabon, a sign that defiance against authoritarian rulers in the Middle East is spreading. Security forces shot dead a Bedouin protester in Egypt's Sinai region yesterday, bringing the death in the 3 days of protest to 5. Police in Suez fired rubber bullets, water cannons, and tear gas at hundreds of demonstrators, calling for an end to the 30-year rule of Hosni Mubarak, the Egyptian president. Protesters chucked rocks and petrol bombs at police lines. In Ismailia, hundreds of protesters clashed with police, who dispersed the crowds with tear gas. Now, earlier today, I heard Hosni Mubarak appeal to the protesters and say he is going to end the government and begin with a new government. So, hopefully it'll be some form of democracy that allows the people to have a voice and not just the rulers. This is spreading, though, all over the place. You see all these other places with dictators and iron-fisted rulers. They're saying, hey, enough's enough. We don't want this kind of government anymore. How far is it going to go? You know, is it going to spread everywhere? Is it going to go to America? Who knows? It's amazing. Here's another story out of Rutsheva. Says Egypt braces for massive riots after Friday prayers. Says Egypt is bracing for massive riots Friday, today, with demonstrations planned throughout the country after Friday morning prayers. As many as 5 people were killed this week in the largest demonstrations in Egypt in 25 years. Now, I saw on CNN the military showing up, and the protesters were like patting them on the back and smiling. It was as if they all had the same goal, to change the government. And they all seemed to be acting in one singular fashion toward the same goal. And I just thought it was kind of weird. I was just kind of briefly watching it on CNN and saw these large tanks and these military armored transports come out and people high-fiving them and smiling and running beside them, and it looked pretty interesting. Anyway, it goes on to say that the major protests followed the recent successful revolt in Tunisia. Demonstrators are calling on Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak to step down from power and allow open and fair elections. The country's 4 primary internet providers all cut service shortly after midnight. Mobile phone signals were disrupted as well, in an apparent attempt by authorities to make it more difficult for protesters to organize or to get footage of the demonstrations out of the country. Organizers have switched to contacting friends abroad on landlines. Footage and reports from protests earlier in the week were online almost instantly as demonstrators updated their pages on social networking sites such as Twitter and Facebook while riots were ongoing. Now, the Muslim Brotherhood joins the fray. The latest government crackdown may be a response to the Muslim Brotherhood's announcement on Thursday that it will join Friday's demonstrations. The Brotherhood is Egypt's largest opposition group, and its participation could give the counter-government rallies new strength. One Brotherhood leader told reporters tomorrow is going to be the day of the Intifada. He predicted that many of the Brotherhood's younger members, some as young as 15, would take part in Friday's demonstrations. So they're basically planning an overthrow, wanting to throw out the government now and get an all-new government, and apparently Hosni Mubarak is agreeing to this. Here's something else out of Rutsheva. Yalan says Hezbollah is now operating in Gaza. Okay, I know, don't get your terrorist groups mixed up. Hezbollah is an Iranian-based group that is in Lebanon and has recently taken over that country. Hamas is the one that's Palestinian in Gaza in the south of Israel. So I know, it's hard to keep up with all the terrorist groups, but it says Hezbollah agents have infiltrated Gaza and are teaching local terrorist groups more advanced tactics. Minister of Strategic Affairs Moshe Ya'alon warned Friday. The Lebanon-based terrorist group even has a special unit that deals with terrorists in Gaza, Judea, and Samaria, he said. Ya'alon, a former IDF chief of staff, said Hezbollah agents could enter Gaza like the Iranian rockets are coming to Gaza. Rockets are smuggled into Gaza from Egypt via a system of tunnels under the border. Terrorists can move from Lebanon to Sudan, then to Egypt, and from there to Gaza. Hamas denied Hezbollah involvement in Gaza, saying all the factions in Gaza are Palestinian, said spokesman Fawzi Barhum. So they're getting a little upset, making sure the right terrorist group is getting attention for the work being done or the rockets being launched. Interesting to watch all this happen. Let's see what else is going on. This out of Yahoo: the Iran nuclear plant will be ready in April, according to Tehran. Iran's first nuclear power plant will be ready to generate electricity on April 9th. Atomic Energy Chief Ali Akbar Salehi said today, in signs of yet another delay. He said, "We hope that on April 9th we will witness the connection of the plant to the national grid." On November 27th, Salehi announced that the plant, built by Russia and Bushehr, had begun operations and that Tehran hoped electricity produced there would be online in a month or two. But then came the Stuxnet virus and delayed many things. You know, it's interesting watching all these things going on. You'd have to be walking around with your eyes closed not to be able to see that what we're witnessing are events that are foretold right here. I firmly believe, especially since Israel was created again as a nation back in 1948, that many of these Bible prophecies are unfolding right before our eyes. And I think many of the ones we're going to see very soon are going to be things like the one world government, the one world currency, one world religion, most likely the third Jewish temple built on the Temple Mount, which, by the way, they have already built the sacrificial altar. It's ready. Okay? They're going to build it just like they built the first two, off-site, and then bring everything on-site. So they don't want any hammers or chisels or any tools on the Temple Mount. So a lot of the things are going to be built off-site, and then they'll move it to the site. And if you go to the Temple Institute or talk to Chaim Rickman of the Temple Institute, he'll tell you the progress they're making, and they're very excited about the very near possibility of the third Jewish temple being on the Temple Mount. And I, for one, find it very exciting myself. I think another Bible prophecy we're going to be facing very soon is the Isaiah 17:1 prophecy concerning Damascus. Now, if you read that, it says that Damascus will no longer be a city, but will become a ruinous heap. And let me remind you that Hezbollah has a military post in Damascus right now, and Israel knows this. So, just some of the Bible prophecies I think we might be seeing quite soon. Here's something that kind of piqued my interest out of WorldNet Daily. It says, "Are you eating food sacrificed to idols?" I thought, no way. American pastor sounds an alarm on supermarkets and restaurants. It says, when you bite into a delicious pizza, a succulent sandwich, or a luscious lamb chop, are you possibly eating food that has been sacrificed to idols? An outspoken American pastor says yes. And he's sounding the alarm for Christians to be aware of the Islamic influence he calls backdoor Sharia, now nibbling its way across the fruited plain in America. At issue, says Mark Blitz of El Shaddai Ministries in Bonnie Lake, Washington, is eating food that's halal, in other words, lawful or permitted for the Muslim diet. Muslims join many Jews and some Christians in avoiding the consumption of certain animals such as pigs and birds of prey, but those of the Islamic faith also have their meat blessed in the name of their God, Allah. From the Christian standpoint, Allah would be an idol, Blitz told WorldNet Daily, because clearly it's not the same God as our God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. the God who sent His only begotten Son, Jesus, to the world to be the Savior of the world, Muslims will tell you that Allah has no heir, Allah has no son, and to say that He does is blasphemous. So clearly, they don't worship the same God we do. So, if they're blessing their food and praying in the name of Allah over it, we're basically, and if we eat it, we're eating food that was sacrificed to an idol. Okay? In a sermon he did last week, which he posted online, Blitz explained, in order for it to be halal, they have to be slaughtered they have to slaughter the animal facing Mecca, and they have to say this prayer about Allah is great and greater than all other gods. Muslims can only eat food that is halal, that has been sacrificed to their idol, Allah, and with Allah's name prayed over it. You could be eating beef, chicken, whatever else, offered up to Allah, and not even know it. So, I can just imagine at a Passover Seder, the caterer, unbeknownst to anyone, is serving halal food. It could be on your pizza without you knowing it, or at your favorite restaurant. People don't realize they could be eating meat that's been sacrificed to idols. Now you might be saying, what's the problem? Well, why is that a big deal? Well, in Acts 15:20, let's see, it says, but that we write to them to abstain from things polluted by idols, from sexual immorality, from things strangled, and from blood. And then in Acts 21:25, it says, but concerning the Gentiles who believe, we have written and decided that they should observe no such thing, except that they should keep themselves from things offered to idols, from blood, from things strangled, and from sexual immorality. So it is a problem for the Christian if they're eating something that was offered up to an idol. I'm not going to go on and read some of these other things because he quotes some things out of the Quran, and I've read the Quran, and I'm sorry, I find it to be an evil piece of work from the devil himself, is my opinion, and that's my stance. Muhammad couldn't even read. Okay, so I think he was easily influenced by the devil disguising himself as an angel of light in this cave. In fact, Muhammad's wife even said that was a demon, that wasn't an angel, and then later she changed her mind, probably after a few beatings from Muhammad, just my guess. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that. I've got many videos explaining why I think Islam is from Satan himself, but here's something I found interesting out of Bloomberg.com. It says, end of the world threat stirs interest in a Scottish nuclear bunker. A nuclear bunker in Scotland, built as the Cold War thawed, is drawing interest from a U.S.-based group worried about another possible threat, doomsday. The Vivos Group, a Del Mar, California-based company that provides protection against what it calls end-of-the-world scenarios, is considering buying the two-story bunker constructed for the UK government in 1990 near Comrie, 67 miles northwest of Edinburgh. Robert Vicino, the founder of Vivos, said in a telephone interview yesterday while heading to Arizona, we've been evaluating it, but it has issues. The biggest one is altitude. It is also well known, so there would be diminished secrecy, but we haven't ruled it out. There's large nuclear bunkers that are no longer needed by governments all over the world, and they've been converted into a variety of uses. One in Switzerland's been turned into a hotel, while others have become wine cellars, museums, or data storage centers. One in Berlin now houses a private art collection. You know, let me remind people, when Jesus Christ comes, there will be no hiding. There will be no place you can go that God doesn't know you're there. Jesus himself said that people will go into caves and ask the mountains to collapse on them and kill them for fear of facing the Lord. And let me just say, Jesus Christ is coming again. He will be coming back. He told us he would, so we know it's true. And a lot of the signs we're seeing now point to that happening rather soon. So I think now more than ever, you need to know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. It's important. It's vitally important. Excuse me, I've been fighting a cold a little bit here. All right, I've been talking about suffering. Some of you may be tired of it. Others of you have been telling me, bring it on, brother, because I'm in the middle of a bunch of stuff right now. I've probably got about another week of lessons on this, so bear with me. I think the closer and closer we get to the tribulation, people are going to need to know how to handle suffering, because there's going to be a lot more of it in the world, and a lot more intensely. In Philippians 1, verse 29, says, "For to you it has been granted on behalf of Christ, not only to believe in Him, but also to suffer for His sake." To suffer for His sake. Okay, now Christianity is intensely personal, right? It's your personal relationship with you and Jesus Christ. It all hinges on an individual having a personal encounter with Christ and maintaining a personal relationship with Him. It's very personal. For years, people that knew me didn't know I was a Christian. I didn't talk about it that much in high school. Didn't talk about it that much in college. Nothing works by proxy in God's kingdom. Okay, you can't hire someone else to live out a new life that Jesus freely gives us. It's all something you have to participate in, and it is incredibly personal. So you're probably thinking, what does this have to do with trials and suffering? Well, keep in mind that suffering is also intensely personal. You know, when a person breaks a bone, they're the one who feels the consequences, not someone else. You know, if you're going through a separation of a loved one, you're the one whose heart is breaking. No one else can feel that pain like you feel. If you've lost a job, someone can say, yeah, tough break, buddy. But do they really feel how you feel? No, suffering is very personal. So when we suffer, we own the experience in a very unique way. It becomes ours, and ours only. And you know, there's always someone can say, man, I know how you feel. Well, maybe they don't. Maybe they know how they would feel in the same situation, but they don't know how we feel. Because suffering is intensely personal. One person might feel completely different about the same experience that another person feels about it. You know, two guys could lose their job. One guy's like, glad to get rid of that one. And another guy could be completely downhearted and broken by it. But the book of Philippians tells us that we've been given the privilege of suffering for Jesus. In other words, we're going to go through difficulties based on the fact that we're following and representing Him. And when these difficulties occur at the office, a family reunion, or some other setting where Christ isn't exactly welcome, they're going to be felt on a very personal level. So, follow this line of logic. When we personally suffer for Christ's sake, it's going to reinforce our personal relationship with Him. Okay? Because the pain is personal. And Jesus is the only one who fully feels it along with us because we're feeling it for His sake. It links us to the Lord in a very unique way. We share something with Him that no one else is able to experience at that particular moment. You know, Jesus said, take up your cross and follow me. You know, He said, those that want to seek to save their life will lose it. But those who lose their life for my sake will save it. So rather than shrink away from these sufferings, we ought to embrace them because they're the doorway into a deeper and a more personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And in the end, we all need a deeper and closer relationship with Jesus Christ. Now to finish this week, I want to read Psalm 23. Most of you know this, but I just want to read it. Maybe it'll help ease some of your suffering. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. God bless you guys. I love you. I hope you get out and worship our great God and Savior this weekend. And good Lord willing, I'll see you again on Monday. Have a great weekend.